All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. A warm welcome on behalf of Azure Easy team. We wanted to welcome you all to our first session on Azure DevOps Engineer Expert certification track. So this is AZ-400. This certification is going to lead you to Azure DevOps Engineer Expert. And I wanted to, give a shout out to all of you, for joining us on this Saturday morning, evening, afternoon, whichever part of the world you have joined from. So just I'll take quick minutes to talk about who we are, what is Azure Easy, and what's our contribution. So Azure Easy was founded and we have created world's largest IM instant messenger based Azure community, which is AzureTalk, and it's a community based on Telegram. So you can, if you have not joined, you can join our Telegram channel, which is t.me/AzureTalk. There you can go and join. We have almost 9,000 members sharing their knowledge, answering questions, helping each other. It's a very helpful community. Plus, we also have Azure DevOps Pro community, which is again based on Telegram, so which you can see https t.me/Azure DevOps Pro. Uh, you can join both, our Telegram group, and you can ask and you can track other members, which will help you answer any questions that you might have. So with that, let's me introduce you to our Azure Talk core team. So this couldn't have been possible because of just one person. So we have these dedicated individuals who are working in the background to help us bring all these sessions together. So my name is Neeraj Kumar. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, MCP, and also an enterprise architect. I have been in cloud space for almost 8 to 10 years. And I have total 20 years of experience. Also have Ram Murthy. He's an MCT and architect. He's based out of Bangalore. We have Ashish Raj. He's a Microsoft certified trainer, DevOps architect. He has been in DevOps field for quite long, and he has a lot of experience on DevOps side. And he's going to be our one of the speaker for DevOps. Then we have Vipin Jha. He's an MCT consultant. He's based out of Delhi. So Ashish is based out of Bangalore. Vipin is based out of Delhi. He's also one of the co-speaker for today's session. Then we have Rahul Mathuria and Kritika. Rahul is based out of Bangalore. Kritika is again based out of Delhi. She's cloud engineer. And we have Nitanshu. So Nitanshu is again based out of Delhi, and he's going to be our one of the co-speakers. So I want to thank all of these team members who have come together to really make this session possible. So let me quickly introduce today's speaker. The session will be opened by Ashish. So Ashish is going to be the one who will lead our session today on AZ-400, and he will be joined by two eminent speakers. Nitanshu Sharma, he's going to help us with the lab portion of our today's sessions. He's going to be there, and also he will be joined by Vipin Kumar Jha. These three gentlemen is going to take us through today's session, and I wish all of them good luck. And Ashish, hand over to you.
Okay, thanks, Neeraj. Thanks for the introduction. So, as Neeraj has said, today we are going to talk about AG400 training, and this is our first session. And with this first session in this track, we are coming up with this exciting news that we will be giving away 6 exam vouchers to selected participants. So there are a few rules. You have to participate in the quiz that will be happening in the last after in the last section of this session. Once you will participate in the quiz, we will be selecting all the participant based on their scores and their registration on the Eventbrite link. So if you have not yet registered on the Eventbrite, we will request you to register there so that you can be in that list, and then we will be selecting the lucky 6, and they will be getting free exam vouchers so that they can give the exams free of cost. These vouchers enable you to give any exam, any Azure certification exam for free. And the winner we will be announcing in the next session that will be happening on 15th of November. So this is it from the the special giving away for the community. And to start with, so today we are going to talk about the DevOps expert certification. So before we start the actual agenda, we just thought of bring out the certification path or the training path you must go through so that you can achieve this certificate, that is DevOps Expert AZ-400 DevOps Expert certificate. To start with the certificate, you have to have one of these prerequisites. So you should either have this Azure Developer Associate or Azure Administrator Associate. So we already have conducted a free training last month on Azure Administrator Associate. The complete course outline was covered in that track, and multiple community member has been able to get certified using that particular training. So you can quickly go to our YouTube channel, watch the session, and you can definitely go for this certification, and you will be able to kind of come through all the questions that is part of that certificate. If you are coming from developer background, then definitely you can try for this developer associate certificate. Once you have one of these prerequisite, you can start preparing for this exam that is going to for which we are conducting this training. So this training is related to AZ-400 exam, and there we talk various concept, various modules related to this designing and implementing Microsoft DevOps solutions. So we have total of 8 sessions. In each session, we are going to cover a separate module, which will be part of the entire course outline of this exam. So once you have these one prerequisite and then the AZ-400 exam, then you are eligible to get this DevOps expert badge. So this is the complete path for getting this certificate. And so to get this particular exam, designing and implementing Microsoft DevOps solutions, you have to come across these modules. So this is our first module that we are covering today: facilitate communication and collaboration. Along with that, there are certain other modules that we will be covering in our next sessions. That is, one of the module is manage source control, define and implement continuous integration, uh, define and implement a continuous delivery and release management strategy. So develop an instrumentation strategy. So all these individual modules we will be covering in next couple of sessions. So for each module, we will be having a dedicated session. The first module that we are covering today is facilitate communication and collaboration, which covers 10 to 15% of the exam AZ-400. All other modules we will be covering in dedicated sessions in upcoming session. So in total, we will be having 8 sessions in which all these modules topic will be covered. Develop a security and compliance plan. That is the next module. Now coming back to our today's agenda, which is which is part of this facilitate collaboration. The first thing we are going to talk about, what are the 4 pillars of DevOps. All right, then we will be talking about 8 capabilities and practices of DevOps. So there are capabilities and practices that helps you implement DevOps in your organization. So we will be talking about all those 8 capabilities and practices and how they help you to implement DevOps in your organization. After that, we will be talking about value stream mapping, which is a very important concept when you are adopting DevOps in your organization. So we'll be talking about what exactly this particular concept is, and how to how to measure this, and how to get help of it to implement in your organization. Then we will be talking about monitoring and ITSM. So what are the monitoring aspect that you have that you need to take care when you are talking about DevOps. So DevOps is not just about certain practices like CI and CD. It also covers other things like monitoring and operations. We will be talking about all those concepts, all those practices, in today's session. After that, the last section or the last topic that we'll be talking about, planning and managing your Azure cost. So, while you are implementing DevOps in your organization, it is also important to know what are the costs, or what are the the financial things which are involved when you are implementing DevOps in your organization, and how you can get started with evaluating those things in your infrastructure, as well as how you can minimize or minimize your cost there, and what are the different tools available in terms of Azure, which can be helpful for you to evaluate those concepts. So these are the section we are going to cover today. So let's start with the first section, which is 4 pillars of DevOps. So we will, when you implement DevOps, the very first thing you should know that there is something fundamental about DevOps, apart from tooling, apart from all other specific things about, you must have heard of continuous integration, continuous deployment, and all those things. Before that, you must be aware about these 4 pillars, which are very much fundamental in terms of the DevOps adoption. The first pillar, which is people, process, and product. So what exactly it says that, when you are talking about adopting DevOps culture, DevOps in your organization, so it's not a tool, or it's not a specific type of methodology only. It's combination of all these 3 things. It's combination of people, process, and product, and collectively all these 3 things become a culture. So when you are talking about DevOps as a implementing DevOps in your organization, you first figure out the people. What are the people you're talking about? What are the skill sets they have? How they work currently? What are the the limitations they have in the current process? And then what are the different process changes it may require to get the desired result? And when you combine these people and process, then what are the different product or tool you need or you require to help them to implement those processes, or to help these people to implement those processes. And in those discussions only you come across different types of product, like when you talk about implementing continuous integration, we will be talking about continuous integration, what exactly it is. But you must have heard of these buzzwords around DevOps. So when you are talking about implementing those practices, then you talk about the product, like what product can help you, like Azure DevOps or Jenkins, or something else, whatever it can be. So it is combination of all these 3 things. What we mean here is the very brief takeaway from this particular point is that it's not just a product. It's not like you just implement a particular tool or a particular architecture, and you just you can claim that you are a DevOps organization now. It's not like that. You have to consider your people, you have to consider your process, and then only you're the tooling, the tooling that you are using, that can help you to go with to get the DevOps adoption or the maturity of DevOps adoption in your organization. The second pillar that we talk about is lean product or lean product management. Now, what exactly lean product is, that when you go through this transformational change in your organization, people, process, and product, there will be a scenario where you have to talk about get things ready as soon as possible. And when we talk about get things ready as soon as possible, then we come across various terminologies like MVP, minimum viable product, or lean product management. So lean product management will help you to get into those MVP product as soon as possible, release it to your customer as a early release, as a beta release, and get the feedback fast and change your strategy if at all it is needed. So that kind of culture or that kind of methodology is called lean product. We will be talking about lean product management in little bit detail in the later slide. But what exactly it means that as a pillars of DevOps, that when you are talking about adopting DevOps in your organization, you must talk about getting things ready as soon as possible. It should not take so much time to get the product by the time the requirement has changed entirely from the business. So when you start this lean product management kind of perspective in your processes, then you can get the things pretty fast. You can get the feedback from the business pretty fast, and then you can change your strategy if needed, as soon as possible, so that you can align with the business changes that is happening, and your product will be very agile in nature. So that is the second pillar of the DevOps. Now the third pillar, which is very very important, the architecture. So when you talk about DevOps, it's just not about automation or about just bringing some tooling or scripting in your day-to-day activity. It's also about a well crafted architecture of your infrastructure as well as your software. So when you are architecting your software, or when you are architecting your infrastructure that is going to host your software, you have to align with these people, process, and product. That is the first, the pillar. And then the lean product management, so that your architecture of the software or the infrastructure is really capable of getting all those agile changes. So we just talk about the agility in the second pillar, like lean product. So when we are talking about lean product management, you have to be ready for for the product to be very agile in nature. As soon as you get the feedback from business, your architecture or your tooling architecture should be capable enough to pick up those changes as soon as possible. So those things can only be possible when you include this third pillar into your DevOps adoption journey. And then this last pillar which comes across your DevOps adoption is technology. So often this mistake happens with multiple people. They often think about technology first, skipping all these three pillars. They just talk about technology. So that's why we have mentioned technology in the last, because when you talk about DevOps adoption, all right, you have to think that uh, that the people, process, and product, your lean product management, and your architecture combined together can can give you the best starting journey for your adoption journey. And then only the technology is just an enabler for you. So when you decided that these are the changes you need, and these are the architecture that you need to implement, so that your product can be lean, your product management can be lean, and your people, process, and product can be aligned together, then only the technology will enable you to do all those things. So all these four pillars work together and helps you in your DevOps adoption journey. So all these, in upcoming slides, wherever we are talking about in different terms, different practices, and all those things, everywhere you will see that a common theme that is available will be one of these things. Either it is talking about people, process, and product, or it is talking about the lean product management, uh, get the product fast, get the agility there, get the feedback as early as possible, and then change your product strategy if at all it is required. So all these things we are only the foundational pillar for all the other practices or the habits or the terms or the things that we do when we do adoption for DevOps. Now, next slide is about this infinity loop. This is a very common demonstration of your DevOps, and it actually demonstrate the exact those four pillars that we just talked about. When we talk, when let's figure it out how that those foundational pillar fits into this particular infinity loop. So when we talk about this infinity loop, it starts from here, from plan. So it starts from plan. Whenever you want to do something or you want to develop something, you first have to plan, right? And when you are planning, your people, your process get involved, right? So this is where your people, process, and product, the first pillar of your DevOps, comes into the picture. You discuss about the product that you want to develop. You discuss the things that you want to do uh, as a as a team. And then once you have the clear picture, once you have the the minimal viable product definition, all right, you go into the next phase where you do the actual development. So you do the code, you create the application, you do the local development, you do the local testing, whatever you can run on your local system, all right. And then once you are able to run, you are able to develop something, you do the next phase, which is build. Build is nothing but the compiling the the code that you have developed, all right. This compile can happen on a server, this compile can happen on the same local computer, but we will be talking about those build step during next discussions, where we will be talking about CI CD and all those things, where we will be improving this build phase using different toolings, different concept, or different kind of practices. But this is what it is. Once you plan the things with the help of your people, with the help of your processes, then you go into the next phase where you code there. The next pillar, which is about the lean product management and the architecture, all those things pitch in, right? How do you can how you can code your application, how what are the different design pattern you should be following, what are the how you are going to host your application on the infrastructure. Is it going to be hosted on a cloud, or is it going to be hosted on a legacy platform? All those decisions happens during the code phase. And then you build it, you compile it, you create a package, you go ahead for the testing phase. You do the testing, right? You do the entire testing. Once your testing is finished, once your whether take it as a manual testing, take it as a automated testing, it can be testing included within your build system as well. So whatever the testing is involved based on your product, based on the type of product we are talking about, then you go to the next phase where you call release process. Now in release process, what you do is uh, you kind of once you have this testing done, you get a binary, or you get a package that can be deployed, right? So during your release phase, you should be having that particular binary that we are talking about. Once you have this binary, right, once you have this binary, then you go to the deploy phase. Right now, in the deploy phase, what you do is, normally it can be your production server, it can be your development server, it can be your staging server, wherever it can be. It you will be actually deploying it on an actual server. And then once you deploy it on the server, you try to operate it. What do during the operations phase, you try to configure it in a way that is aligned with your security policy of organization. You give access to the people who are supposed to have the access. You make sure the application is running properly, it has all the resources, all the capacity which is required for running this application. And when you operate, just during that phase only you do monitor as well. So as soon as you monitor, you get some data from there. You get you get the continuous information from the operational state of your application, where it from the production, how users are using it, what are the different different aspect of your application which is causing problems for the user, or which is pretty much popular to in the users community. All those information will further help you to kind of go into the next phase of your plan using this monitoring data. So you have to release your first phase during this, then during the operate and monitor, you do get some data. Based on that data, only your next phase of your plan will be decided, that what are the features we can actually improve on, what are the features which can actually is not useful for our users, what are the features which are which are just staying there without getting used, what are the features which needs little bit more advertisement into the user community. So all those decisions come across during plan, and then again this cycle goes on. So this is how this infinity loop works in your DevOps culture. And in this whole thing, if you see, there are different people who are aligned there. So during the plan, there will be a different set of people who are going to plan your application. During the code, there will be a different set of people who are helping you helping you to you to code the application. It can be software engineers, it can be programmers, it can be it can be software architects. During the build your application, release management team, your build management team, all those people. So during all these phases, if you see, different roles are working together to make this loop successful. So this is what the culture aspect of DevOps comes into the picture. And that is why when someone asks that, what if you want to get into the DevOps, what kind of skill set or what kind of tooling that you need? So what you need is, you need a comprehensive people who can work together. They have their own primary skill, but at the same time they can be aligned together. The people who are working in plan can communicate or collaborate with the people who are working in in the development phase of application, which is code. And the people who are aligned in the operation can work together with the monitoring phase of your application, so that they can give you the information which can be helpful during the next phase of the plan. So this is how the culture picture comes into this infinity loop, and this is how this thing can work together. Now during this whole cycle, all right, it may happen that if you start with the approach where you are taking too much time during the plan, and then you are taking too much time during the code, and then so and so forth, then by the time you deploy your application, the requirement gets changed, right? It may happen that if you are taking like 4 months period for planning, 4 months period or 6 months period to code, and then another 2 months for build, another 2 months for testing, and then you decide upon the release management. How do we release it? Do we go for staging first? Do we go for QA first, or do we go for development environment? How our development environment should be in so and so configuration, or production should be in so and so configuration, all those decisions. And by the time you go to the actual deployment phase, the requirement is changed. The plan, whatever was decided, that is not valuable for your users anymore. So that is how the applications which are following those kind of methodologies, one example can be waterfall model. All right, so they are they kind of do not fit into the DevOps kind of culture. And that's where the next part is, that is your lean product. So you have to work in a lean product management mode. We will be talking about how those teams who work in lean product management aspect, how they work together, how they how they collaborate together, so that they can make it successful even with those smaller cycle all right, and can get into the to the users with the minimum viable product, in a considerably small amount of time, or faster. All right, so lean product, as we discussed, this is going to help you with the speed to market. So when we talk about those taking so much time, going from planning to the deploy, if it is taking so much time, then lean product is the something which is going to help you to speed to market. And how do you do that? We will be talking about that in the next slide. You define by its, so how do you start it? Actually, that during your lean product management, the lean product, when you go with the lean product management, you define by its business capabilities. So when you define your product, you do not define the product with the things that are technological aspect only. You talk about what are the things will be delivered to the user in a very in a very defined way. That okay, for example, if we talk about, if you are working for an e-commerce application, and one way of telling that this feature is going to help a user to save his cart to buy things later. This is a very business capability that you are talking about. Now, to implement it, what are the technological things you are going to do? What are the things you are going to do on the application side? What are the things you are going to do on the infrastructure side? That is not something you focus on. You first focus on what are the capabilities that we are going to be delivered, and that is what lean product talks about. And then it can be repeatable. So what lean product focuses on, that whenever you do something, it should be repeatable. It should not be, and then only it will be agile. So when you are doing something, when you are implementing a feature, it should be like the way you are implementing that feature, whatever the methodology, or if you are creating an API, or if you are creating a class or whatever, or if you're talking about infrastructure, if you are deploying an infrastructure using a ARM template, I mean a script, Ansible file, a Terraform file, whatever it is, whatever the approach you are doing, it should be repeatable. You should be quickly able to pick the same kind of methodology and will be able to deliver the next feature, if at all that kind of requirement comes into the picture. So that kind of objective can help you into the lean product. Then definitely the agility is the next thing that comes with the lean product management. That as soon as customer comes to you, okay, the this feature we don't need, or this feature needs to be changed in so and so way, you should be uh, very fast in accepting those changes. You should not be parking those incoming changes from the business requirement for the next release, or for a longer duration. Your methodology, or your way of working in the development or in the infrastructure, should be capable enough to pick those agility, or pick those agile changes. And that is what your lean product management can help you in. Then the customer satisfaction, definitely, if you are delivering something which is defined by its business capabilities, that is point number 2 here on the slide, and if you are delivering it by the time business can use it, then it is definitely going to improve your customer satisfaction. Because these are the two things customer always talk about, right? Where they do not care what are the technologies you are using behind the scene, what are the the constraints that you have from the technological point of view or the process point of view. And they will not be concerned that why it is taking so much time to get this particular thing here. Or if at all you release that particular feature, or the tool or the product, by the time business need it, I mean business doesn't need it anymore. So customer satisfaction is gone, right? Because the time customer needed it, you were not able to deliver it. And that's why lean product management can help you with the customer satisfaction. Because when you follow this methodology, you actually be able to accept all these agile changes. You will be able to do the repeatable things. You will be able to kind of define the capabilities based on capabilities. Now, how the organizations do that, and what are the business, from the results, or from the industry standard or trending, suggest from the industry standard or from the industry study, one of the Gartner report here that is coming from the Microsoft document only, suggests that people were able to efficient when they adopted this lean product organization. Why? Because if you see this overlap, there are certain you know stakeholders which are crossing the boundaries, right? Product manager is aligned with the development team, is aligned with the scrum manager master, and is aligned with the business. So that way product manager is not working in isolation. He is aware of business challenges. He is aware how the scrum master has planned things, and he is aware how the development team is working. All right, so this kind of overlapping helps you to get the get the isolation removed from the individual contributors, and get your teams, or get your individual contributor worked as a full stack engineer, or full stack teams who can contribute into the overall product development. So that is how uh, your lean product management can help you with the flatter organization. All right, the overhead is less. At the same time, the cross functional the cross functional roles are there, and people can collaborate effectively to get the results as soon as possible. One thing. Second is, as soon as there are some changes, or there are some requirement changes from the business, there are people who are working together with the development as well as business. They can they can quickly get the feedback and feed it into the concerned team, who can actually take the action item and fix it as soon as possible, so that the delayed information gap or the communication gap will no more stop the deployment or the feature availability on the time. So that is how your lean product management can help you, and which is one of the foundational pillar of your DevOps journey. Now, so far what we have discussed is the DevOps pillars. What are the basic pillars of DevOps? Like your lean product management, people, process, and product, technology, architecture. Now when we try to implement all these things, we come across, or the industry people who has adopted DevOps from their previous experiments in the organization, they came across various DevOps capabilities and practices. So when they started adopting, they started following these four pillars into their organization, they came across various practices or capabilities, the terms they came across when they tried to implement those things. And that is what we are going to cover in the next section, where we will be talking about 8 capabilities or practices. Those 8 capability practices are mostly going to help you to come across all the aspect of the DevOps in an enterprise or in an organization. So we will be talking about the first. Let's go to the first thing, that is continuous planning. So as we discussed during that infinity loop discussion, the first thing that comes along with your DevOps journey is your planning. So how do you plan your features? How do you plan your uh, product development? That is the first thing you will be doing. So that is something we call it continuous planning. So continuous planning, why do we call it continuous planning, is that, as you can guess, that continuous, that means that planning is not just one phase. So what do we mean by that is that if you think about previous mythologies or the legacy mythologies or the different other way of developing the solutions, there are phases like first you do the planning where you do the requirement gathering, you do the other things, and then you go into the development phase. Then you do not look back into the planning phase, you just do the later things. And that way what happens, you are not open to the changes that can come into that plan, right? So and that is something is today business need to today business is changing so fast because of technological need, because of the way industries are moving, different industries are moving. The business is changing so fast that it might happen that what is needed 2 months back is not needed anymore now. But development can development cycle can go for 3 months or 4 months. So what will happen if you develop something which was needed 2 months back, but it is not going to be needed when you are going to release this product. So because to overcome this particular problem, you have to be open for the changes that might be coming from the business. This is for something which is not needed, but it can be also possible that there might be some changes in the business over last few months, that there is a new requirement comes into the picture, the complete different requirement. Something was needed, some feature was needed, feature A was needed. Now feature A is not needed, but feature B is needed because of change in the dynamics of the business. In that case, if you are open to the changes, if you are open to changing your plan, and that is what continuous planning is. How do you implement it? We will be coming across in the next slides. We will have a dedicated slide for continuous planning, but this is what continuous planning talks about. How do you do that? What are the different advantages you get? We will be talking about that. Now the next thing is pretty much very popular in the DevOps community: continuous integration. So when you have planned your things, features, product, whatever you are going to deploy or release, you have to when you go into the coding phase, when you go into the development phase, and then after development, what you do the testing. So when you do the development and when you do the testing, the cycle is there is a cycle there. And the testing can be either automated or can be manual. It can be either. But what happens if suppose you have done your planning, your plan is as per the business need, but the moment you develop and the moment you test, and the cycle is so long, 1 month long, 2 months long, whatever, then what happens by the time you do the entire testing, the features that was developed in the development phase during the coding phase is not required anymore. Even though you planned it very efficiently, your planning was very smooth, but your development and testing integration was really not nice. Your developer was not getting the feedback as soon as possible. We call it feedback. That when a developer develops a feature, he's supposed to test it. He's supposed to get the testing done in the real like environment. It can be a server, it can be an environment, a integrated environment. There can be certain things he can test on his local machine itself. There can be certain things which can be tested using unit test and all other methodologies. But there can be challenges when we are talking about manual testing, when we are talking about certain things which requires a complete infrastructure to be set up. So in those cases, if you do follow the continuous integration approach, what will happen? As soon as your developer implements the changes in the code, he will have an environment ready which can run that code and verify that the changes the developer has done is ready to run, is runnable in the environment. That is what the objective of continuous integration. How do we do that? What exactly the framework looks like? We are going to discuss in a separate slide, that is in upcoming section. But this is what continuous integration is. When you do the continuous integration, the end product, you get something, right? So when you do the planning, you do the plan. When you do the integration, you do get the code, and the code is tested in a environment where the build happens. You get the code. Once you get the running code, the code can be run. It has got the unit testing successful. It has got the other testing, integration testing, or other kind of testing which is required to validate that whether the code is runnable or not. That is all done. Now then you need to have a system where you can continuously put that particular the output of the continuous integration. So when you do the continuous integration, you get a thing which can be run. What that particular thing is called, we are going to talk about in a next slide. But that particular thing, we call it, that particular thing has to have a space where you can put it, and whenever someone is ready to pick it up, it can be your testing team, it can be your deployment team, it can be any, or it can be an automated system as well. That particular system can take it from there and can do the further process. They can deploy it on a system, they can do the further testing, they can do n number of things. But this is how it revolves around. So this is the third capability we are talking about. Now the next capability we are going to talk about is continuous quality. Right. So when you do the integration, some set of quality check, some set of testing you can do on the continuous integration phase itself, right? But there can be some testing, security testing, or there can be some manual testing, there can be some functional testing, there can be n number of tests needs to be run before it can go to the next phase, which is your actual environment. Though those quality tests, all right, suppose this is a manual test, or suppose this is a test which needs an integrated environment, a database, a server, a Windows server, a Linux server, and all those things works together to kind of test that particular feature which was developed in this particular cycle. In that particular thing, if you have a quality assurance approach where you have a QA team which kind of gets the code, today they do the deployment on some QA environment, they do the validation, so all manual. They do some scripting as well, right? So they run some scripting, again manual or automated, doesn't matter, but it does have some hurdles there, right? So even though your continuous integration was able to validate certain things, but it still need to be validated by a particular quality assurance team which can assure that the code or the application has the sufficient level of quality in terms of functionality, in terms of coding standard, in terms of security and all those things. Then only it can go to the next phase. Now there also you have to think about continuous approach. It cannot be a manual approach, or it should not be a way to kind of validate manually, or there has to have some tooling there which can take the things from the delivery. You get the the things get output from the integration, you get here, then you take it from there, you deploy it automatically. You try to improvise or on your quality standards in a way that you script most of the things. You do the you do the kind of automated way of checking most of the things. It can be automated testing, it can be some script which can validate other integration stuff which could not be validated during the integration testing. So all those things has to be done as part of quality assurance. And when you do this continuous approach, the quality assurance converted into a different way of checking your quality, and more in a more continuous way, in a more automated way, and get the feedback back to the previous loop if at all there is certain issues. So suppose you are running your quality continuous quality approach, you have some tooling there. There are different toolings that you can use. There are different approaches you can use. You have some scripting, you have some function app there which can which can do the functionality testing of some API or something you do, and if you are not getting a result as appropriate, it can definitely go back and give the feedback to the previous loop, that is delivery, and then previous loop to the integration, and that way it will not go ahead and the continuous will stop, and the continuous thing is validating that continuously developer is getting the feedback that okay, things are working as expected. So these are the four things that we have discussed from the continuous approach kind of thing. Now the similar kind of things are there from the operational point of view. Now this is continuous operations. So far what we have discussed continuous planning. You have planned it in a continuous way. You are open to changes from the requirement from the business. If at all some changes are coming, you do the change, you are open to those changes. All those things are there. Now next thing is your developer has the environment where he can continuously update the code, get the instantaneous feedback, code is working fine or not, things are as according to standards or not. Then you get the delivery of the app, the code to a particular location. It can be it can be a file server share, it can be anything. We will be talking about those places where you can put your output of your integration. Then you get the quality check using a continuous quality approach. Once you do the quality and you do that everything, and if everything passes as expected, then you deploy the things, right? So you once you have deployed, and during the deployment the operations comes into picture, and that's how the dev and ops. Dev, so far we have discussed, that was majorly a dev responsibility. Now we are coming into the ops kind of responsibilities, where you deploy things, you continuously should be able to deploy things. So you should not be waiting for some infrastructure team who is responsible for validating the code and then preparing the environment as per the industry standard, as per the organization standard, then configuring the server, configuring the infrastructure, setting up the access control and all those things. During all those things, they will take like 1 week, 1 month, or whatever it is. It should not be like that. It should be continuous. As soon as the quality is passed, continuous quality check is passed, your application should be deployable to the location where you want it to be. Now during this approach you can make help of different toolings available. You can take help of infrastructure as a code concept. There are different tools available, Terraform, Ansible, whatever it is. We will be talking about toolings in upcoming sessions and all. There are different sessions dedicated for these particular practices, but what we are trying to talk about here is that fundamental. When you do the continuous planning, when you do the continuous integration, when you do the continuous delivery and the quality check, continuous quality, then you are supposed to operate also continuously. You should not be operating, your operations team, your IT team should not be working in isolation, who does not have any idea that how to do the things, deploy the things continuously, how to monitor things continuously. And that's where the next part is the continuous security, that when you deploy things, you have to make sure that responsible people are able to access. And when people are developers should have the access to deploy the application, or should have access, appropriate access to monitor the application or to debug the application, whatever access it may require. So continuous security is also there. It should not be manual approach where people, you have to reach out to a team if you have deployed an application in a cloud environment like Azure or somewhere, and if at all your application is not getting the appropriate access for your developers or for your application or for your database administrator or whoever it may be, if then you are supposed to contact a team. It should not be like that. Your application, you should have a defined standard, you should have a defined template. As soon as such and such application will be deployed using such and such tool, that these are the security rules will be applied. There are different techniques there, As you may know, if you are talking about Azure policy, Azure role-based access control, all these things are going to help you to achieve this kind of thing. But it should be continuous. It should be automatically applicable to the people who are supposed to have those access rules. It should not be manual. It should not be on ad hoc basis. There can be some scenario where you need those manual or ad hoc basis, but from the continuous point of view, from the DevOps adoption point of view, it should be continuous. Now next comes to the continuous next capability we are going to talk about is continuous collaboration, and which is one of the foundational, again it is coming in the later part of this particular discussion, but this is one of the most foundational or fundamental thing which can help you achieve all those continuous capabilities. Continuous collaboration means that all these roles, all these people should be able to interact with each other. The company should have a or culture. The tooling should be available, and there should be sufficient support from the technology which can help you to to discuss if at all some issues are there in operations, and if they are related to security. It should not be a tooling where people in sitting in silos and they are creating tickets, or they are not able to talk to each other, they are not able to discuss with each other. It should not be like that. It should be in a way that people should be able to reach the other person or the other role, and they should be able to overcome those challenges if at all something is happening on the other side. So for example, if there is some business requirement change, and if you are following a continuous collaboration approach, the business stakeholders, product managers, or the product owners should be quickly achieve, should be able to reach back to the the development organization, and spread the communication that this particular feature has changed in so and so way. We need to change it in the development, or we need to roll back, or we need to escalate it a little bit further so that we can get it as soon as possible. Those kind of and similar kind of collaboration should be there between the operations or security, and between the operations and the development. Suppose operations is trying to deploy something, and due to certain limitations, all right, or due to certain requirement of development framework that has been used by the development team, they are not able to achieve it automatically. So they are supposed to be reach back to the development team as soon as possible. They should be able to fill that communication gap, and implement it as soon as possible, and then make it continuous, so that next time if they are facing some problem, they should not face that problem. Now the next point there is continuous improvement. Now when you talk about all these things, you all these things you are doing so that you can improve it a little bit more in the next cycle. As we have seen during the continue this DevOps uh, infinity loop, everything is coming back, right? Everything is coming back. You start from the planning, and then go back till the monitoring, and then again you go back to the plan. So whatever you get from the monitoring, those data points are going to help you to improve your product, all right, improve your processes, improve your tooling, or improve your development framework, or the methodologies that you are using to develop the application. So continuous improvement is another capability which should be in there, and there are different ways you can implement it. We will be talking about that in the dedicated slide, but this is how you can achieve the DevOps maturity in your organization. All these 8 capabilities uh, are able to give you the end-to-end result that DevOps commits, or DevOps kind of says that these are the 8 capabilities which are overall the complete picture of DevOps. Now let's try to see the complete picture of one of the capabilities, that is continuous planning. So when we talk about continuous planning, we talk about, that how do you plan the things. Now there is a approach, there was and is a approach, we call it big design upfront. Now in big design upfront, what happens that you you start a project. Like here in 2001 the project was started, and they kind of got this project cost like 120 million dollar approval for that. And then what happened, they started working on it, they were started working requirement gathering, they got everything there. And then by 2005 they got the idea that boss, we need to scrap everything whatever was defined earlier, and we have to kind of go back and define the planning again. Now what happens, you again go to the 2006, right? You define, you go to the new development team with the new requirement. It can be new platform, it can be new entirely new platform that you are going to use, or whatever it is. Now estimated, earlier estimated time was 3 years, now it is going to be 4 years. And then again your project cost uh, increased, and that is how ultimately in 2010 you are able to deliver something again, but that is something which is 50%. So which was whatever was planned is not yet delivered. Even though the time has elapsed, you considerably increased your cost of product. And that is how this big design upfront approach is not feasible in today's design, business requirement. Today's in today ecosystem, business needs result fast. They want to spend less and they want to get the result fast. And in that particular system, continuous planning, that is, and for which one of the approach is lean product management, can help you there. So what they do is, in the continuous planning, you go with the new approach, you decide upon the on the requirement. In the requirement, you define a minimum viable product. You don't go with the complete $120 million cost budget. You go with a small budget, you go with a 32 million budget. You go with the minimum viable requirement which should be required to deliver your product. All right, so you go with this kind of approach, and then you kind of take some time and you are able to deliver within 2 years that minimum viable product. That way the business is getting result fast. They were not committed for entire end-to-end big software or solutions. It was a minimum viable product. We decided upon that with a lesser cost, with a lesser budget, and with a lesser time. And you are following a continuous planning approach where you are reachable, or you are open to changes that is going to happen in business during those years, and you are quickly be able to take those consideration in your development phase, and you are able to deliver it considerably fast. And that is how continuous planning is going to help you in your overall product development journey in a much more better and efficient way. When you do this continuous planning, there are certain things which you have to kind of focus on. What are the various things? One of the most important area that needs to be focused, that is objective and key results, that we call OKRs. Now what do we mean by that is, the first of all, you have to have a clear objective. So when you go with a big upfront design approach, uh, as compared to continuous planning, you talk about so many things. In continuous planning, you talk about clear objective. You don't talk about all the 10 points, you just talk about the most viable or the most important 3 points. You have to be very clear on those objectives. These are the 3 things. If we will be able to deliver, then we are going to have a considerably good relationship with our business, a considerably good customer satisfaction and all. Once you have this objective, you define the aspiring goal. when you define your what do you mean by inspiring goal is that when you define your objectives and when you start developing it, you define something which can inspire a team. Like, your team is working on something, and if it is innovative enough, all right, that can help them to get the confidence further, then it will definitely help the boost up the morale of the team, and they can actually get the confidence that, okay, if this is possible, then definitely the next phase we are going to have a complete different level of maturity. So that is one of the very, very important aspect, that whenever some milestone is achieved, you have to define, or you have to tell or communicate to your team that this is what we have achieved. So whenever you achieve something during your continuous planning, and whenever some changes are happening from the business, and definitely it will be a challenging job for your team to accommodate those changes, and during that you define those as an inspirational changes, that, okay, if we will change the this particular thing, this is going to change our product in a very different way, and customer satisfaction will be very high, or whatever it can be, or technological evolution will be there, or whatever. I mean, whatever inspire your teams, it is a technology team, it is a business team, whatever it can be. And then share your goals. You when you define your goals, you share it across. You don't just share it within a team of business people or executive people, or just a bunch of developers know it, or just a bunch of architects know it. Share it across, so that everyone will be able to relate with those goals. Everyone should be able to understand, okay, why we are doing it, why we should be giving our 100% to achieve this. Those inspirational goals should be spread it across the entire team, or the complete team, whosoever is involved in that particular thing. Or to make it very to make it more clear, make it shareable across organization. Let the organization know that, okay, this is a team which is working on so and so feature, and this is their milestone that they are going to achieve in next 1 year. And that way it becomes an inspirational goal for your team as well, because this is going to give a recognition for entire team in the organization. Okay, this is something which is going to happen differently in next 1 year. When you are doing all these things, it is very important to measure your result. What exactly you have achieved, what are the changes you have done, what are the things are happening, how developers, how infrastructure, how architect, how business people are able to see those changes. What are the positive impact, what are the negative impact? When we talk about negative impact, you have to think about the last thing, that is failure happens. So when you talk about innovation, when you talk about transformation, it is not that always you will be having a positive, or always you will be having a smooth transition. There might be some scenario, there might be some technology, there might be some processes, or there might be some people who will be not able to get into the kind of changes that was planned. And that happens. You should not blame those people, you should not blame those technologies, you should not blame those processes. This is part of your DevOps journey. So you just keep doing this cycle. If something bad happens, or something some failure happened in this cycle, let's try to learn from these results. That is, your major results will give you all those data points, and try to make ourselves better in the next phase. So that is how you can improve on. So this is the very objective and key results, that is very important from the DevOps adoption journey, that should be communicated across in your organization. When we talk about continuous planning, there are certain principles. All right, that is, whenever you are defining those goals, whenever you are defining those when you are measuring those matrices, when you are spreading across to the organization and all those things, OKR, you have to follow certain principles that can help you implement those things very efficiently. One of the thing that can help you is simplicity. You should always value simplicity. Don't make things complex. Just think about things that you're supposed to do. So when you are defining your business capabilities of your application, think about just a simple thing that can define that business capabilities to the organization or to the to your business. You should not think about too much about making it complex, defining it in a very big document and all. It should be very simple to be understandable with all the stakeholders. The next thing is manifesto for agile software development. Now there is a manifesto for agile software development, and if you know, devops is DevOps has been actually kind of came into picture or came into the industry. DevOps came into the industry as a result of agile requirements. So when developers were following the agile way of developing their software, and when they were kind of doing the all those things which agile manifesto says, that during that phase itself they had to kind of come across those challenges which we are talking about, which we have discussed, that continuous planning, the challenges which can be overcome by continuous planning, the challenges which can be overcome by continuous integration. So those challenges started gaining started getting into the picture when people started following agile, and that is manufactured for agile software development. And during those whole transformational journey, this new industry or the new term or the new methodology, whatever you can call it, this DevOps came into the picture. While they were trying to follow the agile manifesto, they developed all kind of practices that we have discussed so far. And that is our main document that can help you make those practices much better. Right now whatever we are discussing, it can be improved further. There might be some more patterns that you can come across based on your custom requirement, based on your organizational requirement. So so to get all those improvement, you have to follow this manifesto for agile software development. You should enforce design thinking in your organization. So this is another very important aspect, that whenever you develop solutions, there is approach which can help you develop things which are matured, which are repeatable, which are having following the best practices. So design thinking is one of the methodologies which can help you to do the continuous planning efficiently. So you should definitely look at it. How do you plan it? You look at the design thinking approaches. There are certain approaches which can be helpful in your design, in your continuous planning. The next thing is in iterative and incremental. So what do we mean by that is that definitely when we are talking about lean product management, lean product development, iterative incremental development is one of the things which can help you to run the show for the longer time. Because as we have seen, that when you talk about a big upfront approach where you talk about all the features, all the things in a first go in the planning itself, and then you take considerably 6 years 7 years of time to develop that thing, and then by the time you develop it, the whole requirement change, then you again revamp your development team and again takes 2 years 3 years time, and then again you are getting just a 50% of what was decided. So that kind of big upfront approach is going to give you always, it is not going to give you the optimized result. Incremental and iterative approach is what it says, that you define small, you do it fast, you again do go into the next loop, then again do the next things, then again do the increment on the whatever you have done in the previous loop, and that way your product will be matured over a period of time. At the same time you are getting the feedback from your business. At the same time you are able to develop things pretty fast. Lean product management, that is we have already discussed, that your cross functional team will be there. You should be it should not be that teams are working in silos and all. Estimation accuracy, your your whatever you measure the results and all, you should be thinking about accuracy in your estimations, whether it is about estimating the the efforts that is going to be required, or whether it is the estimation that you are doing as part of your monitoring the the application that has been deployed or that has been in the testing environment, or wherever it is. When you are estimating things, make it accurate as much it can be, and that way your continuous planning will always give you a positive result. Now let's talk about continuous integration. That is the next capability that we have discussed. Now in continuous integration, as we have discussed, you do the code changes, and with the code changes, as soon as you do the code changes, there is a system which is going to run your code. All right. And that system can be either on your local computer, or that system can be a separate server or remote server or whatever, or it can be a tool like Azure Pipeline, Jenkins, or there are different toolings available there. What they do is they do the compilation, they do the testing, they show a result that what has happened when developer has given the latest code, whether it was successful, how much tests were passed, how much tests were failed, what was the what was the level of those failures, what was the level of those I mean how much success rate is there, and all those information is available during your build phase. We will be having a later session where we will be talking about how to implement your continuous integration using tools like Azure Pipeline and all. But here what we are talking about the practice, that as soon as you do the code changes, you do get the a build get runs, and build gives you the feedback that whether it is passed or not. If it is not passed, definitely developer will get to know that okay, whatever the changes you have submitted, they supposed to be, the developer supposed to see those changes and again make those corrections so that this build can pass. As soon as this build is passed, they create a package. They call it artifact. Artifacts are nothing but a package which can be deployed to a server. It can be a zip file, it can be an exe file, it can be a MSI file, it can be a Java jar file, whatever. I mean, whatever based on the platform. It can be any kind of file that can be directly deployed to a particular platform. So when we are talking about .NET, it can be SPX files, it can be MSI files, it can be .exe file, or when we are talking about Java applications, it can be jar files, or it can be any other, whatever based on platform. The build server results, when build successfully runs, they result the things which can be given to the next cycle, that is continuous delivery, and and then manage the deployment part of it, whether you are going to deploy it or whether you are going to keep it, and you will be deploying it later as and when there will be requirement to deploy it. So this is something continuous integration talks about. Now what is the what exactly when you do the continuous integration, what are the goals that you have? One is collaboration. So you should have a sufficient level of collaboration with your development team and the teams who are kind of working together on different features. So one team might be working on API, another team might be working on front end, and they both can be kind of putting their code on the build server, and they both have supposed to work in a way that whatever the feature which supposed to work collectively using the front end and back end, that collaboration should be there so that your build system is able to pick the changes appropriately and able to give the results, and so that the successful build result can be generated. That is artifact, again, exe file, ASPX, .NET, I mean, jar, whatever, zip file, whatever it can be. But collaboration is the first thing that should be there so that people can collaborate together. Whenever they submit their changes, they know what they're submitting, what are the prerequisites for running this application. If at all there is some dependency, they need to talk to each other. Okay, this dependency is there, have it already been taken care, have it already been submitted. If there is a API requirement, if there is a function requirement, if there is a separate class requirement, whatever is there, so those collaborations should be there. If at all suppose this build should uh, to run this particular code changes, suppose you submit those code changes, and in this build server there are certain dependency that needs to be required. as part of the latest changes, those dependency are there on the server or not, or are accessible to be installed on demand or not. Those things should be collaborated with the operations team, with the build team, with the other development team. All those collaboration is something that is going to help you there. Now the next thing is the parallel development. As we have said, when you develop parallelly, there is a one team which is developing a certain function or a certain feature, and there is a another development team which is doing something else. Or it's not like only parallel development on the development level only. It can be parallel development on the infrastructure and development as well. Suppose there is a development team which is developing a software or a particular feature which needs certain infrastructure in cloud environment, or in an on-prem environment, to be available as soon as they publish the code. So for suppose they are developing something, and the moment they publish the code, the build system supposed to create a web application in the Azure web app, and do certain things in the Azure. Now, suppose that particular web creation process, of course, it is not developer responsibility. It will be infrastructure people, right? So those collaboration, right, with the development and infrastructure, or development and development, or infrastructure and infrastructure, should be there in a way that whenever continuous integration is happening, things being submitted to the build system are able to execute properly. So that should be your goal when you are talking about or planning your continuous integration approach. Now the next thing is minimize integration depth. So what is integration depth? When you do the integration, as you may aware, so for example, we just discussed, when you are, your development team is doing something, and that particular change requires certain infrastructure setup in the cloud environment or in the on-prem environment, so that that particular change can run or can execute. Now, to do this integration, you need to do some kind of setup, right? I mean, whether it is your operations team or infrastructure team supposed to write a script, whether it is PowerShell script, or it can be ARM JSON template, or it can be Kubernetes file, or it can be Docker file, it can be anything, right? So those things are sometime manual. Many times when you just get started, those things are manual, or those things are like they are like they cannot be automated. They cannot be automated in a beginning. Now slowly, when you see this is a requirement continuously, like as soon as you do some changes, there is a dependency where operations team or infrastructure team or a different development team supposed to do so and so things. Now there you need to introduce automation incrementally. Slowly you try to automate things, so that those integration depth, those extra time that you need, that is unnecessary, will be reduced over period. And that is what you need to do the integration depth. That is what minimize the integration depth. That you are minimizing your integration depth. You no more need some manual intervention, so that those integration can be executed. Integration initially it will be there in any platform, it will be there. And these integration depth can be development to infrastructure, infrastructure to infrastructure, or development to development. It can be cross functional, or it can be same organizations, but you have to recognize them, measure them, and over iteration you try to improvise them. Quality gate, as soon as you do the integration, as soon as you put some changes, there should be some gate, there should be some minimum criteria which should be passed to go to the next level. So suppose, let's go back to this thing. When you do the build, and when it is going to generate the artifact, before that you have to have some quality gate, which here somewhere, which can kind of validate, okay, this is doing, I mean, this is happening or not. This is kind of whether, suppose this is a API. So if API, this particular URL is accessible or not, or suppose this is a web application, so this application is returning 200 code, or I mean 200 HTTP response code or not. Those kind of quality gate, try to try to start with the bare minimum thing, then iteratively you try to add certain more quality gate, more, so that your manual approval process, right, start reducing. Most of the things will be automatically checked by the quality gate, and that things are possible using Azure DevOps and different other toolings as well. We will be discussing about certain things when we will be discussing continuous integration module, where we will be talking how to do those quality gate integration and all. But you have to think about quality gate when you are adopting this continuous integration. Similarly, you are supposed to automate things. As you may know, in all those discussions we have putting stress that whenever you see certain things happening manually, it may be, initially you can accept it, but later on try to minimize it, and whenever you see the pattern that it is continuous, try to automate it. Now, next capability we are going to talk about is continuous delivery. Now, continuous delivery, as you may know, this is also one of the, the most discussed things in the DevOps, ecosystem. And what happens here is that your CI system generates this artifact. We just saw that particular thing where you got this artifact. Now, as soon as you got the artifact, you deploy things on dev, you deploy things on another environment, or you send it to some other environment. And when you are sending things to environment, whether it can be pre-prod, QA, or dev, or whatever, it may require that there is some manual process there. So to deliver these products into different environment, it can be a actual server, it can be a location where you are hosting your package. This is what continuous delivery is. Continuously, as soon as your package is available, latest package is available, the next cycle is available, the next thing is able to pick those latest changes and send it to the appropriate environment. And if at all some manual approval process is required, that will be triggered automatically. And when you have a manual approval system, then you call it continuous delivery. But suppose you don't have a manual approval, your CI system is capable enough to pick all kind of testing requirement, all kind of approval requirement, all kind of quality gates, everything is taken care during the CI process itself. Then you might not need these approval. Now, when you don't need these approvals, we call it continuous deployment. Now, in this continuous deployment, the similar kind of thing happens. The only difference is there is no manual, intervention. No manual intervention. In a very mature DevOps organizations, this is what happens. As soon as developers make changes, quality continuous integration makes sure those changes are compiled, those changes are tested, those changes are integratable, those changes are available to the delivery system, deployment system. Those changes are matured enough, or they are tested enough to be deployed to the any kind of environment. And whatever validation is required, they are inbuilt, inbuilt, implemented either in the CI system or in the continuous deployment system, so that there is no chance that the system will be able to ignore some error or something. And if at all you have this level of maturity where your deployments are auto approved based on your scripting pipeline and everything, it is totally automated, then you call it continuous deployment. So this is the another level of your continuous delivery. Just that in continuous delivery, you just have a you have a artifact, but you still need to validate manually, or you still need a manual approval system to go forward. But in continuous deployment, you don't need that kind of approach. Other than that, they are similar, the other than manual approval things. Now, when you decide upon the continuous delivery goals, when you design your continuous delivery, what are the things you should be thinking about? You should be thinking about build, test, and release with greater speed and frequency. So what do we mean by that is that when you build your system using CI, And definitely if your CI system is capable enough to pick all the changes from the developer, the moment developer has committed, then all the testing has been done, then your deployment system, your delivery system should be capable enough to pick those things on speed, all right, and the faster frequency. So as soon as, because as you may know, developers will every day they will be making some changes, every day they will be doing some commit, all right. Now if your deployment system, your delivery system is not capable enough to pick those things and validate and put it into the environments, appropriate environment. Now whether it will be auto deployed or not, that's a different thing, right? That you can decide whether you want to deploy things monthly, you want to deploy things daily, or you want to deploy it continuously, right? Continuous deployment, that is something you need to decide. But delivery system is capable enough to pick all those changes. If they are validated from the CI system, they can be placed in your environment, specific environment, waiting for the approval, whether it is automated approval or whether it is manual approval. So that kind of agility, that kind of repeatability should be there. The next thing you should be thinking about: reduce cost, time, and risk. Now when you are deploying things, you actually you go for cost, right? When you are deploying things, you deploy it on an infrastructure that is going to have some cost, right? When you deploy things, you have to kind of reserve some time. When if at all your delivery or deployment system is not matured enough to take care of failures, all right, then you have to decide upon timing as well, and that also cost you time. I mean, cost your downtime and all. And at the same time, risk of delivering changes. So when you are delivering changes, there can be risk, right? There can be some data loss might be happening, even for a fraction of seconds. If your application is down and if your users are continuously using it, there might be some data loss, there might be some session loss, there might be some so all those things you have to minimize. And how do you minimize it? You have to pick appropriate platform which can help you to automate approval process, that can help you to minimize the time, all right. You have to pick appropriate platform, right? These days various platforms are there. Talking about Azure, there are web apps. Talking about open source system, Kubernetes, Docker. Talking about other platform, other cloud platform. You have to think about cost perspective when you are deploying continuously. You have to see when you are deploying things, if at all those things are um, going to be cost effective or not. Similarly, when you are deploying, the way you are deploying your solutions, the methodology you are using, there are different kind of deployment pattern. We will be talking about that in some in a detailed way, that how do you plan your deployment. There are different types of deployment type which can help you to minimize the risk, right? Your application, if your application is not available, how do you make sure that your users are not impacted? There is still a new a version is available, or you are taking care of those risks. Actually, you are just first checking whether there is some failure or not. If there is some failure, you are just going back to your previous version and then go back to your developer and tell, boss, this latest version is not working as according. And then you try to evaluate why your CI system could not pick it up, why your manual approval system could not pick it up, why it was caught in production only. And then iteratively you try to improve on those things. This is the continuous delivery goals that you should be talking about. Once you have this continuous delivery and deployment in production, the next thing that you talk about is quality assurance. Compared to quality assurance, there is a new concept in new concept, or a little bit better concept, I would say, in the DevOps ecosystem, that is called continuous quality. Now we will be talking about what exactly the continuous quality and the quality assurance. There is some difference there. What is the difference there? Definitely quality, continuous quality also what it does is it try to continuously, check your quality. I mean, check the quality of your application. It continuously, as soon as you deploy your application, your quality system is in place, whether it is tooling system, whether it is some script, or whether it is whatever it can be. It try to, validate the quality standards. It try to highlight those standards, whether your application is secure enough, whether your application is working as expected, whether it is taking up the capacity that it's supposed to take, the number of users, number of sessions, and all those things. So, but it's supposed to happen continuously. Now, similar kind of thing in the legacy or in the previous set of practices used to happen and is still happening in certain system. What we call is continuous assurance, I mean quality assurance. So what do we mean by quality assurance, and how the continuous quality differs to that? Now let's try to see this particular table. Now in quality assurance, what you do is you try to break the system. You try to break the system. Your whole objective is to find the loopholes where the problem is, and you try to break the system and see how much how much stress it can take. Similar kind of thing. Now in continuous quality, the approach is little bit different. Here you just don't try to break the system, you try to see what is happening. You try to monitor things. You just don't try to run some random script and try to create a virtual user sessions and try to see how when is the application is breaking up. Instead of that, you try to see the actual running application, the production system. You try to see when is the failure is happening, and you just try to fix that particular problem, so that you're improving the system. Your focus is on improving the system instead of looking into the breaking rules which might happen or which might not happen as well. Suppose you are breaking the system, or you are trying to stress test an application with the 5,000 users. You are considering, you are spending your time, you are spending your resources on that, and your application is not is not actually going to be used by more than that users. I mean, it will never happen in real time. Then your approach is completely, your use case is completely different. So that's how the quality assurance and continuous quality differs in their objective. Now, what you do in quality assurance, you do the check functionality, you do the functionality checking. But however, in continuous quality, you try to understand things. You just don't do, you just don't randomly see, okay, whether user is able to click on this button or not, whether this particular API is available or not. You try to see how much this API is being used, what are the different components are being used for these features, and if this component is able to meet the expectation or not. If it is not meeting up, what are the things we can do from the application infrastructure point of view, or from the coding point of view, or from the operational point of view? What are the things can be done to improve it in a way that is the actual requirement? Not like, just checking checkbox. It's not like you're just marking some checkbox that, okay, this is happening, this is happening, this is not happening. It's not like that. You try to try to see the system, the whole architecture, and try to improvise it over a period, and so that your application is improvised in a way that is more meaningful for your users. Similarly, who does it? Tester. In quality assurance, mostly if you have done it, it is like, tester responsibility. Tester, okay, we are done, developer is done, applications are accessible on this URL, these functionality is working. Now quality assurance will go ahead and run some checkbox. Okay, this is happening, this is not happening, this is happening, this is not happening, this API is available, this API is not available, green, blue, blah blah, all those things. But in case of quality assurance, I mean, sorry, continuous quality, it is complete team owns it, because it is entire application. You are talking about looking at the application and try to figure out what exactly happening. So it can be a development ownership, it can be a infrastructure ownership, or it can be a operation ownership, or it can be collective ownership. It can be like, that okay, developers can use this particular package so that we get a better caching system. Or it can be like, let's, infrastructure team ask that use this particular tier for hosting our application so that we can get this particular feature that is needed to implement certain feature in our application. Or operations, like, if we are not able to figure out what exactly we can do, we take we kind of take the operations team into the understanding, and they try to monitor it, they try to tell us that, okay, this is what, when your application breaks actually, and this is what we need to fix, and there, again, further evaluation can happen. This is how this happens. Testing, quality assurance, mostly testing at the end, right? You do the testing, once you have the delivery of the product, you do the testing. But continuous quality enforce that starting from the developer's machine, you do consider doing testing. There can be certain testing can be done on the developer machine, there can be certain testing that can be done on the CI system, there can be certain testing which can be done during the CD phase. There can be different testing, but you have to consider testing from there itself, from when the development is starting, from there till the deployment is happening. The testing should be that, your you should always test your system, and not only till the deployment, actually during the monitoring also. You monitor it, you try to see what are the things are possible, right? And that way you will be able to incorporate everyone. You will be able to see what are the things which are going to cause problems for your application. This is what it is. Again, the same thing where QA stage, it is happening everywhere. Now, when you do the testing, and when you do testing, and when you find something, find some problem, then there is a cost to fix that, right? I mean, if you are finding a problem, uh, let's see, if you are finding a problem, then there is a cost associated to fix that. How does it looks like? So when you are finding a problem during the requirement and design phase itself, it's very simple to fix during, because you already got the problem, right? So you have not yet started the development, you yet to start the development, then definitely the cost is minimal, or I would say very minimal, because it becomes part of the feature. But as soon as you move forward in the next phase, when you are doing the coding, and then only you find out that this needs to be tested, then it becomes 5 times more, you know uh, cost, expensive, 5 times more expensive than the requirement and design phase. Similarly, if you did not figure out during coding, and during the coding the phase itself, then you will be figuring out during the integration testing, during your CI cycle, whether it is continuous integration or QA, all those things. Then you will be doubling up your effort, because developer has not yet found it, they have already developed it. Now they have to go back and find out what are the things they need to do to fix this particular problem. Similarly, if you are into the user acceptance testing, if you have already passed the integration testing, and your integration system is not yet capable enough to pick those particular problem, or pick those particular bugs, then you are going to pay 15 times more than what you supposed to pay during the requirement and design phase. So you pick, you try to minimize the things which can be discovered in the later phase, because that way you are paying more in terms of efforts, paying more in terms of your um, features, paying more in terms of user experience, all those things. And similarly, the last phase, which is post product release, which is the biggest thing that you need to kind of avoid. You never want to release a product which has bugs, right? So this becomes a, the most difficult part, or the most difficult problem to fix, because to fix this you first have to go back to the way back to the, this coding phase. You need to realign your requirement in a way that can be fixed, and then you have to either plan it in the next phase, or you have to plan it in the current phase. And when you are planning it in the current phase itself, current cycle itself, right, which is running right now, then you have to kind of compensate it with some other requirement, because you have limited capacity there, right? You are open to the changes, but you have to be kind of you have to be accommodating according to your capacity as well, right? So similarly, we have this continuous operations, with the kind of similar kind of approach where your application is designed or created using configuration as a code approach. You create infrastructure as code, you create configuration as code, using which you try to monitor servers, based on their telemetry. You auto scale things based on the requirement, and you apply the governance based on the coding, infrastructure as code itself. And then you continuously monitor the application, and whenever there is some changes required based on these matrices, like if you are getting some auto scale requirement, your application is coded in a way, your infrastructure is coded in a way using different types of toolings are available to implement this configuration as code concept or infrastructure as code concept, where you will be automatically making sure that your operations is continuous. You don't need a manual intervention there. Most of the things which are required for an application are taken care automatically. If at all, there are certain requirements that can be done, but yes, iteratively try to improve on it, try to get the insight based on telemetry, try to get the insight based on auto scale requirement, try to improvise your configuration as code so that you try to update those scaling requirement and then all those things. So this is what continuous operations is. So you just don't talk about development and deployment. You also have to considerate about the operations aspect as well, that they are included in your deployment process and monitoring process. Now the next thing which is very much important is continuous security. Your security should also be very your infrastructure deployment or your system should be considerably uh, but you should have all those aspects designed in a way that your operations is secure. You have proper access and control. You have people who need access to your application already have access defined using configuration as code or infrastructure as code methodologies. You have proper identity and access management. You need to have the secure infrastructure in place. You design your infrastructure architecture in a way that is secure. Then you define your network security inbuilt in your infrastructure. Out of the box, you get all these things by using platforms like cloud. When you use cloud, all these things are inbuilt. You just have to do the proper architecture design, proper deployment pattern, and then you get all these continuous security options there. You will be automatically be able to see what are the ports which are open, HTTPS is enabled or not, applications are accessible on a particular port, applications are monitored for certain type of traffic, all those kind of things. You need to make sure that those are things you are taking care. Next thing is continuous collaboration. As we have discussed, collaboration is one of the fundamental thing that you need to think about, and that is again, you need to when you are collaborating, mostly Kanban collaboration comes to the picture when you are when your when your application or infrastructure team is following agile methodology. Then you should be following the Kanban collaboration, where you can design things on a Kanban board. You can you're planning, and then you move your status of your task on that board. That is there. You should be following the Kanban collaboration approach, which is there in Azure board. We will be trying to see that particular thing in one of the demo. uh, Alignment or autonomy, as we have said during whole discussion of DevOps, we have seen that there are different people, different teams who are working together to make sure your DevOps journey is collaborative. Your development team, your infrastructure team, your operations team are working together to understand each other requirement. In that particular process, alignment and autonomy both are important. Alignment means that your development team should be considerate about the requirement or the or the features requirement or the expectation from the development team. or your infrastructure team or your operations team or your security team or your business team, all those should be aligned together so that they can get the overall work to, overall product on a on a defined time. At the same time, when they are aligned together, they should also have the privilege of autonomy, because these people work on different aspect. Infrastructure team work on a different aspect, development team works on a different aspect. So when we are aligning it together to work together, at the same time we should be able to give them proper autonomy so that they can be able to do that their individual expectation or individual uh, what I would say objectives properly. In that particular process, this cultural collaboration comes to the picture. You set up a culture where people collaborate, they work together, they don't just put things on each other's shoulder, they work together, they try to see what exactly things, what are the things can be done from their end so that the overall goals can be achieved. So collaborative culture is very important aspect of this continuous collaboration. Then you should be thinking about the tools and the the documents which can be created so that different teams can access those documents and try to see the overall goals, the overall milestones of the product. So you can have teams. Microsoft Teams is one of the thing. Wikis, different applications have different way of creating wikis. You should have wikis to share the milestone or to share the planning of your team or of your product, of your project, whatever it can be. So you should have this particular thing. And then next is chat ops collaboration. So whenever there is some requirement of collaboration, there is some requirement where people need to talk to each other to get the things done immediately or on a demand basis, you try to implement chat ops collaborations. You just should avoid certain kind of tooling where people supposed to create a ticket or send an email and then wait for other person to kind of come back. You should increase the culture of instant messaging in the team, where people can directly reach out to the people who are concerned or who are responsible to do the things. It can be automated things as well. So suppose there are certain things, suppose there is a access needed to deploy certain things in so and so environment, so that can be automated as well. So there can be a bot or there can be a chat system which can directly um, take the input from you and then do the work behind the scene, either using some automation or whatever. So those kind of application aspect you should see, and in those kind of chat ops kind of collaboration applications like Microsoft Teams, Slack, all those can help you very to kind of achieve this kind of thing in a very efficient way. Similarly, you have this features team and SRE on a team in a DevOps environment. Then you have one feature team which develops the product, and there is a SRE team, site reliability engineers team, which do maintain the features or do which do these people do small quick fixes or small things which is essential to make things run in the environment, in the production. So you should have a good collaboration between these two teams which are responsible for making changes. But it's just that the SRE team is making sure that application is running in the production. Features team is making sure that whatever the planned things are committed are delivered. And then SRE can take the feedback from the existing system, can pass it on to the features team, that okay, these are the things which you can plan in the next release, because this is a very continuous thing that is happening and we are using some workaround, or we have to fix it ourselves. So those kind of collaboration should be there in the continuous collaboration approach. Now, in the continuous collaboration approach, this is how things can work in a lean program management. So you have this different UI specialist, middleware specialist, database specialist. Ideally, I mean, normally what happens, not ideally, but it is normally what used to happen and is still happening in some places, that these are siloed functional team who are working separately, UI team only working for UI, middleware team only working on middleware, database only database, and that way their features are not integrated, they don't know each other's requirement, they don't work, and then what happens, things developed by UI might not match up with the requirement of middleware or requirement of front end or requirement of back end or requirement of database, and that way it increases the overall time to deliver. But if you use the cross functional team, these three teams are working together, all right, and then developing a software which is cross functional, and then it kind of gives you the product quite efficiently integrated, and then each other people, the people who are working on this product knows little bit of each other responsibility and each other functionality, and they can tweak their functionality or their work in a way that can work with other product feature to make the overall product a little bit more successful. Now, the next thing which is coming about is continuous improvement. That is how, as we have discussed, this is the last thing that we have to, that we are discussing, that, when we are talking about continuous planning, continuous delivery, and continuous operations, you also have to think about continuously improving it. So how do you improve it? You first have to measure it, how exactly your application is doing, right? How your application is being used by your developers, how your applications is being used by your your consumers, and what are the different things are there, so that you can directly feed in those information into the feedback loop, which can give back to the previous things, which is planning, right? I mean, so that this can give the information needed for the next phase, which is planning, and the next phase can plan things properly, and and come across with those improvements which is coming as an action point from the measurement. And once you have those measurement and feedback, you continuously try to improve it, right? So when you have the feedback from the measurement, you definitely going to implement it in the next cycle and improve the software or improve the infrastructure or improve the overall system in much better way, so that the users can be able to see those changes. Now, with that particular, last capability, we are going into one of the very important aspect, that is value stream mapping. Now, value stream mapping is one of the thing which is very important from the measurement point of view, that what needs to be done and what needs to be kind of automated and what cannot be automated, or what is actually a kind of a unwanted thing which is still there and you can actually get rid of it. Now, when we are talking about value stream mapping, this is requirement of continuous improvement actually. So when we talk about continuous improvement, value stream mapping, we are going to talk about it in a detail, but we talk about all these things: lead time, cycle time, what exactly the time it is required to kind of deliver the software and or deliver the bug fixes, and how much time it is going to require. Similarly, mean time to resolution, how if there is some problem happening, how much time it is taking to fix that problem. And similarly, you have this change failure percentage, how much, how many changes are happening which are actually failing, and you need to improve on that. And then you get the overall picture of your continuous feedback, that okay, these are the things which are happening and we need to improve on it. Now, to improve on it, you have to go back to the, this cycle, this loop. This is how it happens to improve this, the, how actually the improvement happens. You have an idea that okay, this is the thing that we need to build. All right, when you build something, all right, using the code, definitely the similar cycle. When you get the when you develop things and you deploy things, whether it is in development or production or in a staging environment, you get some data, right? You measure it, like how things are working, whether it is accessible, whether it is how much time, how much failure is happening, whether the change percentage, what is the change percentage failure, if it is failing, then how much time it is taking to restore those things. And all those things give you the data to improve the things better. You learn from it and then you improve it. So this kind of continuous feedback, to do that, you have to kind of minimize this particular loop. You have to see what are the things which can help me to get the build fast, to get the measurement fast, and to get the learning fast, so that this cycle can be a little bit faster and the feedback is faster, and so that our application, overall application, improvement is faster. So to achieve that, this value stream mapping is one of the very basic thing that you can get help with. What you do is, normally what happens, a customer comes to you and requires a thing from you. All right, you go to this requirement phase, you get the things designed, you develop it, and you do the testing, and you then deploy it. Now during the whole cycle, that is very much, if you go into deep inside it, there can be a, infrastructure people, there can be quality people, there can be coding, CI, CD, everything is there. But this is the very high level thing which happens. Now during this phase, what happens, you can see that there is a time where it's just that idle time. You just kind of do the requirement gathering, you do the design, you go back, you reiterate the changes, then you go back again, you do the changes again. So similar kind of thing, that is not actually developing something. You are just doing the things on the paper, and which is not visible to your customer. All right, the what is visible to your customer is this: when you develop something, when you are doing the testing, whether it is unit testing, whether it is user acceptance testing, you can show that particular product there. So this is the overall thing that you can see in any cycle, in any project delivery process. You see that this is the time of, this is the kind of flow that you have. Now this particular process time, we call it value time. Like, this is something which is creating a value, this is something which is creating something visible. But this time is there, but whether it is creating a value or not, I don't think so, because even though you are doing something, but it is not visible. So many a times it happens, like those people who work on projects, they are into the requirement gathering phase, and the requirements keeps on changing again and again. And then what happens, uh, people can come back and say that, okay, there is nothing visible, right? They can be, like, that this is the thing which is visible, but this is not visible. What you did, where was that this time left? 2 months, 1 month, 3 months, whatever it is. So this kind of process, there you need to see and you need to figure out how do you define the non-value process time. What do we mean by that is that when you look at this idle time, and when you do like when you look at this process time, there might be some time where you see that it is taking time, but it is not valuable, it is not valuable to the customer. So in that particular case, you have to see what are the things which are there, which is directly visible to the customer. Like suppose this can be a product catalog, this can be code, this can be quality assurance, this can be production deployment. This is directly visible to the customer that, okay, this is something we have demonstrated. This is something which is there, but which is unnecessary. It can be like, suppose there during the requirement gathering phase, you have to meet people, right? Those meetings, it might have happened that if at all we could have a kind of a better efficient way of getting all those information, instead of going into the 2 hours meeting or 3 hours meeting and then getting nothing, or nothing visible, at least. Similar kind of things will be there, can be there in during the deployment. Suppose during the quality testing, one of your manual tester supposed to run a script to kind of create an environment to run the application. Now application running is visible, but creating the environment is not visible. That no one knows, it could have been automated, or it could have been avoided, instead of if at all the environment was already ready. So those kind of unnecessary value time is there. Now there can be some times which are non-value, which is not visible to the customer, but it is, it is necessary. For example, as I said, uh, the QA is supposed to create an environment. Okay, now environment creation is required, but it is not visible. All right. At the same time, there can be something which is suppose when they get a environment. Suppose automated environment creation process is there by the infrastructure team, but there can be certain script which supposed to run the appropriate environment within the server, which can help you to run the most updated application, like cleaning up the cache, or or setting up the the dummy data, or something like that, which is non-value, which is not visible in terms of product delivery, but still it is necessary. If you will not create dummy data, you won't be able to do the testing at all, whether so that kind of segregation you have to do, that what are the unnecessary value time, non-value time, what are the necessary value time, and what are the value adding process. Now definitely when you have unnecessary non-value time, you try to remove them. Definitely you try to remove them, whether you try to get the management say, whether you try to do the automation, whether you try to implement certain things using some technology, you definitely try to improve on this unnecessary value. Then you try to see the necessary non-value, that is whether it can be automated. If it is non-value, whether it can be automated, can it be pre-deployed, can it be can it be in a way that as soon as changes are done, the this particular this particular non-valuable thing can be done because it is necessary. And then you have the last thing, which is value adding, which is value adding. You cannot directly go ahead and remove it, but at the same time you can look at those processes, those things, and you can improve on those things using automation and all. So these is mapping, this kind of mapping can help you to get a lead time which is progressively reduced. Progressively you can get a lesser lead time if you try to reduce this particular time, if you try to remove a particular small section which is unnecessary, or you might try to automate it, or if there is a necessary non-value but you are able to automate it, then definitely this particular line will reduce little bit, and progressively you will be able to stream your value streaming process will be better, and your delivery time, or the lead time to deliver, will be improved over period. So this is how you should be when you are planning your collaboration, when you are planning your continuous planning. You should be always think about what are the types of processes are there, and how to segregate those processes, or the value the times which are necessary, which are unnecessary, or which are mandatory, and then you try to automate accordingly or remove them accordingly. There might be some scenario where they are unnecessary, but you cannot remove it entirely. There might be scenario where they are unnecessary, but you can directly go ahead and remove it just by one approval, or one discussion with the some team, security team, infrastructure team, development team, whosoever it is. So that way you will drastically remove this particular time period, and then it will improve your lead time. When you do all these things, data becomes a very important aspect of your application. And how do you do that? When teams try to transform, definitely they will try to do small things. When they do the small things, all right, and then they automate things progressively, and then they get the when they try to automate again and again, then what happens? Slowly things gets complex, where you have lot of technical depth. When you try to automate, certain things becomes a bottleneck for you in the process, and you have to you are getting a kickback, and your process is little bit uh, you know slowing you down as compared to you should have improved. So this particular thing happens in any kind of infrastructure. When this happens, you have to remember one of the one of the objective or OKR, that is failure happens. When failure is happening, it is very much natural. Then when you are automating things, there will be some technical debt which is kicking you in when you are in a intermediate level. And the only thing which is there is that you continuously improve on it. You try to gather the data, you measure it, you try to, or you try to do the value stream mapping, you try to remove those unnecessary value time, you try to remove those necessary non-value time, you try to automate value addition time. So those kind of improvement will slowly give you the improvement in your DevOps journey. And this is the whole DevOps journey for any organization. Slowly you will get quick wins, but it is not going to end during your intermediate or medium level of maturity. During your medium level, there will be the skill requirement. There will be some requirement where you have to collaborate properly, you have to get the data, you have to gather the information, and you have to slowly improve on it. So this is how this particular thing move on. And this is how data driven DevOps can help you to do the value stream mapping as well as continuous improvement properly in your organization and in your DevOps journey. Now, the next topic that we have is monitoring and ITSM. Now, monitoring is one of the very important aspect for the DevOps journey. So you have done your improvement, we have done your, you have done your planning, you have done your continuous integration, you have done your continuous deployment. But when it is about the production, when the application is hitting the production, you to get the continuous quality, to get the continuous improvement, you have to well plan your monitoring and ITSM approach, IT service management. Now how do you do that? Normally what happens, we have already discussed that you have your team, your team, and then you are building, testing and deploying your customer, and then your company, and then you are deploying to your customer, and then it is coming back to you, monitor, and then you get the the feedback from your customer to your company. Now in this case, to monitor this application, you have one solution from Azure, that is Azure Monitor. Now what it does is it can it can monitor your hybrid infrastructure. So what it is that even though it is saying Azure Monitor, it doesn't mean that it can only monitor your Azure infrastructure only. It can monitor your other cloud infrastructure, it can monitor your on-prem infrastructure, it can monitor any other infrastructure. And then it can give you a feedback loop for your infrastructure, that okay, these are the things which are happening in production, these are the things we need to improve on, and these are the things you need to automate, or you need to kind of pass it as a feedback to the development team, or to the infrastructure team, or to the architects, or to the business, whatever it may be. So Azure Monitor helps you, do that. Now it has also a option to create alerts. So when you talk about continuous operations or continuous monitoring, then when something happens, it might be required that you need to be alerted in a very real time situation. That if suppose your server is getting too much high uses, if your application is getting attacks frequently, certain types of attacks, DDoS attack or whatever, or if your application has some vulnerability, then you can create monitoring, and then on based on that you can create alerts, and that is possible using Azure Monitor. If you are using some other software, that is also there. There are so many other open source software as well. There are some software from other vendors, but Azure Monitor is something from the Microsoft, and that is part of this particular exam, where they will ask you certain questions, which is where they will ask whether monitor is capable to create alerts, how do you create alerts and all. So you need to understand that aspect, that when you are doing your continuous monitoring or continuous operations, you have to have a tool which can monitor your hybrid infrastructure. It should not be only cloud infrastructure. It can be on-prem as well. It can be other infrastructure as well. You should be able to get the alert in real time. You should be able to do some actions. Suppose some alert is coming, you should be able to run some script. You should be able to run some software which can do something for you. And one of the things which can be normally you might want to do in the continuous operation approach is you want to connect it to some ITSM tool, IT service management tool. Example, ServiceNow. There are some supported tools which will be listed in the next slide. We will be going there. But you can connect your ITSM tool with the Azure Monitor, and so that whenever certain things happening, you can create action to either create something in that particular ITSM tool, or you can either take some action based on some script, or based on some function, or based on some lambda function, based on some function, some web URL or something like that. You can also create dashboard and workbooks so that you can monitor that what exactly happening in your infrastructure. What are the applications, how these applications are working, and how they are how they are integrated, or what kind of traffics are moving on, what kind of uses is there. So all those things are possible using Azure Monitor. Now, along with Azure Monitor, there is another tool, that is Application Insight, which is very much very much useful for web applications. So you can monitor your web applications to detect some anomalies or performance anomalies, or detect some problems with the certain types of URL or certain pages, and all those things are possible, that you can see how much how much resource being used for your application, where exactly certain page are failing, where exactly what kind of failure is happening, what exactly the HTTP response code is happening on one of the particular type of request, from where that request is coming. Those kind of diagnosis is also available there for your web applications, which is also very very important when you are doing your continuous monitoring or continuous operations. You can use this particular tool to do the analysis, that what kind of failures are happening, what kind of uses is there, what kind of resources are being used, what are the failures are happening, how do you fix those failures. uh, there are certain generic recommendation that can happen, that can come from Microsoft from this particular application inside, which can help you to take action and fix those problems. The problems will not be fixed automatically. You have to fix them by either following the recommendation, or taking those recommendation in your as a data point, and then talking to your teams, data development team, infrastructure team, security team, whatever, whosoever may be concerned for those kind of failures, and then you can fix those things using but Application Insight will enable you with those data points. Then you can also analyze your user experience. So suppose you have your users are accessing one of the page quite frequently, one of the page is not being used frequently, one of the page people are using, but they are abandoning that particular page, and then after that they are abandoning the entire application itself, because user experience is not good. So they have to wait a lot. There might be some database operations which is happening behind the scene, and because of which the delay is there, and because of which users are not staying on that application. This happens. So these kind of interactive experience data points you can gather using Application Insight, which can help you to improve your continuous improvement. You can get those data point, put it into your planning, and go back to your cycle and put it in your continuous planning, and then you can kind of either plan it for the next release, or you can plan it on demand with your team, with a collaboration with your development team, that okay, this is something we need to fix it immediately, or this is something we need to fix in the next release, or something like that. But these are the tools that are available for those kind of things. Now, how Application Insight work in case of web application? this is important from the web application point of view, that application insight mostly works with your web applications or backend, backend APIs there. You can use any types of platform, .NET, Java. There are couple of platforms that are supported for application insight. There are SDK available for that. When you develop your application, you can, your application can interact with the web service, or that can interact with all these different types of background services. Now, when your application is using these different types of things, application insight can be placed in these three types of categories. It can definitely sit into the web applications. It can definitely sit into the web services. It can definitely sit into the background services like APIs and all. It cannot, you cannot integrate with the external services without knowing what kind of platform it is. And you cannot integrate with any kind of database services or database backend resources. So it can give you information from all these three different types of categories. Then there is a application insight resource which is in Azure. So in Azure there is a service which is application insight. They can talk to the application insight, and you can get various types of things from that. You can get the alert, you can get the dashboard in a Power BI. Power BI is a tool again from the Microsoft, which can help you get you a very interactive dashboard for your application uses, for your application response errors, for your application's success rate, for your application failure rate, for your application uses, how much resources it is using, what kind of users are accessing, what pages are mostly being accessed, what pages are mostly abandoned, and all those kind of information you can get in a very interactive Power BI thing. You can use application insight with Visual Studio. So developer can actually talk to application insight and can plug in their own custom errors into the application insight as well. That is also possible. So suppose your developer wants to throw a particular error into application insight when a user is getting a particular problem while using application, a particular code base is being hit, then he want to log that into the application insight. That is possible using application insight SDK. So that is there. You can talk to the application insight using API, so that is also possible. Or you can export the data from the application insight and put it somewhere, wherever it might be your a different tool where you analyze that data. It might be a different tool where you kind of aggregate that data for further processing or for further analysis. You can do all those kind of things with the application insight, and all these things enable you to do the further continuous improvement into your application development life cycle. Now, the next thing, once you figured out there are things which are happening, there are problems which are happening, there are some alert being thrown, then you can connect to your application insight or Azure Monitor with these popular ITSM tools. ServiceNow is one of the market leader there, but you can connect with these other tooling system, Provence, Chervil, System Center Service Manager, which is another Microsoft tools. So you can integrate them, or you can integrate with other toolings as well. But yes, there might be some custom work needed you need to do, or progressively Microsoft is improving their ecosystem of tooling. So it might happen that after some time they will keep on adding some other ITSM tool, but for the time being, till now, as per the documentation, these are the toolings which are available for your integration. You can directly integrate your Azure Monitor with ServiceNow, so that if something happens in your system, in your infrastructure, and if it is getting monitored using Azure Monitor or Application Insight, it can throw a particular type of event into ServiceNow. It can create a ticket. It can create a typical type of ticket assigned to a particular group, and that kind of feedback can be established. Now, the last but not the least, the most important part over here is that planning and managing Azure cost. When you are doing your deployment, when you are planning your things into the deploying your services into the Azure or a any other cloud platform. We are talking about Azure cost because it is part of this particular exam, but you have to plan your cost depending upon your infrastructure if you're talking about DevOps in general. But from this exam point of view, we are talking about Azure cost and what are the toolings that are available. What are the different options that you have when you are talking about the Azure cost. One of the most important point over here is Azure purchase option. So when you talk about taking the cloud platform, you have various options to buy. One of the options is enterprise. Another option is your reseller account. Another is partners and your personal, that is pay as you go model. So these are the various channels using which Microsoft give you the Azure as a service to you. You can start with the personal account, then you can go with the enterprise agreement, you can go with the reseller to get the Azure services, or you can connect with a partner and they can get you the Azure services, and based on the negotiation, the services, the cost will differ based on the purchase option. So when you go with the personal option, when you go with the pay as you go model, it may be a little bit higher on the end, but if you go with the enterprise agreement, it may be a little bit cheaper in that term. So you these are the four options you have. It is completely up to you what option is making sense to you, but you should be aware that what is the scale that you need, and what exactly the option that is feasible for you as compared to the pricing compensation or pricing information that you are going to get. Now, similar to that, you have to consider what are the different factors in the cloud that affect your cost apart from purchase option. The one factor that definitely kind of affects you is users meter, that how much uses you are doing. Definitely, how in terms of virtual machine, how many hours it is going to run, how much data it is getting transferred, what kind of storage that you need, and all those things. Other thing that you need is resource type. Definitely, based on the resource type, virtual machine costing may differ than a web app. A web app cost may differ than Azure Kubernetes service, or Azure Kubernetes service may be different than Azure Container Instance. So all these resource type may differ from the cost perspective, and you have to see that which one is making sense to you. Because I have just given you an example, like virtual machine, web app, Azure Kubernetes Service, Azure Container Instance. You can deploy a particular type of workload in all these three things. Container. If you are talking about container, you can deploy in a virtual machine by managing your own container system. You can deploy it in a Azure Kubernetes Service. You can deploy it in a container instance, or you can deploy it in a web app as well, which is supporting Docker containers. But it is entirely based on what you need, and it will definitely hit your bills based on the resource type that you are using. If you are using virtual machine, it will be different. If you are using AKS, it will be different for the same kind of use case, but with different benefits. Subscription type, as we have discussed, there are four different types of purchase options. You have enterprise agreement, pay as you go model. So based on the type of purchase option you have selected, your cost will also differ. So public pricing is different than the enterprise agreement, then the partner ecosystem, or then the resellers. So you have to see that. And the third, the fourth, and the last thing which impacts your resource pricing is a location. So where you are deploying your services, whether it is India, US, that is also going to impact your pricing. Pricing calculator is one of the thing which is you can directly go there and search Azure pricing calculator, which quickly gives you a assumption price for a particular resource, and you can go ahead and see what are the pricing and what are the things are there. Now, there is another tool that is TCO, that is total cost of ownership, using which you can define your workload. That okay, these are the things I'm going to deploy: SQL workload, virtual machine, Active Directory, Windows Server, or a different kind of platform that you can decide. Based on that, you can adjust the assumptions that these are the things you need, these many CPU, these many RAM you need, and all those things. And based on that, it will give you a report that how much cost you are going through right now in your on-prem system and how much cost you are going to have in your Azure. So based on that, you can definitely use this information and proceed that whether you want to continue with your on-prem deployment or you want to consider Azure as an option to deploy your infrastructure. So this is the way of evaluating your need in terms of deployment platform. The next part is that minimizing cost. How do you minimize it? Definitely monitor your uses, how much how much you are using, how much resources you are using, how many things are you are using. Use spending limit. In Azure you have the option where you can set up a limit that a particular resource type should not have this much this much uses, or a particular virtual machine should have, I mean, a particular resource type can only have these many resource instances, and all those kind of limits you can set up. Use Azure reservations that you can go with the enterprise agreement. If you go pay as you go model, and if you go Azure reservation, in Azure reservation you actually kind of reserve the instances that okay, these many virtual machine I am going to use for 1 year. In that case your cost will relatively lesser than your on demand kind of deployment. So that is also one of the thing that you can use. Then the next thing is your low cost region. As we have said, location is one of the criteria where Microsoft can charge you differently in different locations. They can charge different in US East, they can charge different in South East US or South Central US. Those kind of segregation is there. So you can select one of the location which is nearer to you as per your architecture requirement. At the same time, it can be cheaper as well. And then you make use of tags. Tag is another way of kind of looking at your application uses, how many cost is you are going through, what type of application is getting how many cost, production is getting how much cost, development is costing how much, and then that way you can evaluate how much things are there. Then we have the last thing, which is Azure Cost Management, which is again a tool in the Azure which helps you to see all those things, how much which subscription is costing you how much, what resource type you are using, what are the resource type costing you how much, and all those things. Definitely this is another tool that is there. We are going to have a 10 minutes break or probably 5 minutes break, and then probably we will have a a demo session. Let me go back, and we will have a 5 minutes break, and then we will have a kind of a uh, let me just set up a 5 minutes break. In the meanwhile, you can put your questions there, and we can answer those questions. So we have a 5 minutes break, and then we will come back. And in the meanwhile, you can post your questions, and we will be answering those questions. Yeah, Nitanshu, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so you can share your screen now.
Yeah. So, hi guys, uh, welcome back. So, myself Nitanshu, and I'll be taking you walk through this session. And in today's demo, we'll be integrating Microsoft Teams with Azure DevOps. So, for that, let's get started. So, for the for this demo, we have particularly two prerequisites. So first one is you should have a Office 365 account, and second one is that Office 365 account and that Azure DevOps organization should be in the same Azure Active Directory tenant. So first thing we'll be trying to do here is integrate our Azure this Microsoft Teams with Azure DevOps organization. So for that, we'll first just go and create a team. We'll create a new team for that. So we'll click on here, join or create a team, and we'll click on create a team, and we'll create it from scratch. And for now, we'll keep it as private. And I'll add a name for the team. So it will be DevOps AZ-400, and I'll just click on create. So as you can see, the team got created. So the next option is we have to add some members to the team. So I'll add few of my team members here. So one of them is Ashish, and second one is Vipin. I'll just click and close. And right now you can see that DevOps is at 400 teams is created. So we'll just now integrate it with Azure DevOps. So we'll just click on the channel, which is the name is general here. So we'll just click on these dots and we'll click on connectors. And here you can see there is a connector called Azure DevOps. So we'll just click on add and we'll click on add. And then we'll just click on configure. So as soon as you click on configure, you can see some options here, which will eventually connect you to your Azure DevOps account. So you'll just click on the account that you are using. So this account that I was talking about, this account and your Azure DevOps organization should be in the same Active Directory tenant. So like we have here is it is texplorer.in. So and next you'll choose your organization, which is Azure DevOps Pro, and then you'll just choose an Azure DevOps project. So in this case, we have this one, and we'll create choose the team that we have there in Azure DevOps, and we'll select the events. So here you can see we have multiple events in this drop-down list. So we can create notifications for any type of work that we do in Azure DevOps subscription. So there we can create a work item, or we can create a release, or we can create a pull request. So for all of these notification we can receive on our Teams channel. So we'll just create a simple notification for a work item that is being created in that our Azure DevOps tenant. So we'll just click on save. And here you can see that one of our connectors that is for Azure DevOps is configured. So you can configure multiple notifications here as well. So like we have created one for here you can see if a work items is created in area path for AZ-400. So it will notify me. So I can configure one more notification as well. So for, using the same set of options, I will just create one more notification as well. So I'll just create it for one work item deleted. So I'll just click on save. So here you can see it is configured for two notifications. One is for work item created and one is for deleted. So now we can just close this and we'll just quickly go to our Azure DevOps project. So here you can see this is our Azure DevOps project, and here we'll just go to this work items, and I'll just try to create a new work item. I'll just create a task from here. So this task is basically for any task in your project. Like I'll just type it here, create an Azure web app, and I can then assign to the responsible for person. I just select these users. I'll just assign it on my name, and I'll just click on save. So now, as you can see, this work item is created. To create an Azure web app, it is assigned to me and it is created. So now we can go to that Teams channel that we have created. You can see we have received a notification from Azure DevOps saying create an Azure web app created by Nitanshu Sharma. So this way we can receive some notifications on our tasks that we do on Azure DevOps, and we can also, let me just delete that, and we can see that it is working properly.
So this demonstrates the collaboration you can have when you are working with Azure DevOps and team. So, with the team, you have different types of people. The people who are creating the task can be different, but at the same time, you can get the notification on DevOps, MS team, and, they can be engineers, they can be developers who can start working on those items. They need not to, go into the same interface. Yeah, Nitanshu, please go ahead.
Yeah, so here you can see that as soon as we deleted the task, we received a notification that this task has been deleted now. And also, in the second part of this demo, we can, always integrate our Kanban board with Azure DevOps, like Ashish told in the collaboration part of his session. So Kanban board is basically a board which turns your backlogs into some kind of interactive signboards, providing a visual flow of work. So you can just create your work in form of tabs in this Kanban board. So let me just quickly show you how can you do that. So we'll just click on this channel and we'll click on the plus icon here. We'll just add a tab. So here you can see Azure DevOps. And we'll just select the organization. I'll just log in. And I'm logged in, and I'll select my Azure that DevOps organization, which is Azure DevOps Pro. I'll click on continue. So now here you can see you can select your normal dashboard, or you can also add a Kanban. So we'll be using a Kanban dashboard, and we'll just select our project in the Azure DevOps tenant. We'll select the team, and we can select the backlog levels as well. So features is for particular feature that we have created, and stories is for the user stories. That is basically a kind of scenario that user wants. So we create multiple tasks under that. So we'll just create it to the level of the story, and we'll just click on save. So here you can see that I have one board in front of me. So what I'll do, I'll just go back to my Azure DevOps tenant. I'll just try to create a work item or user story there, and let me show you that. So we'll just create a new work item. We'll click on user story. So I'll just enter a title here. So like this is the user requirement that he wants to see a yearly sales data. So for that, there are multiple set of tasks that will reside in between this whole user story. So we'll just click on save for that. Just go back. So here you can see that a user story has been created. I want to see my yearly sales data, and same we will be able to see in that Kanban dashboard. So here you can see that particular work item that I created there has been showing up here. So from here, I can also change the status of this task. Like it is created new right now, so I wanted this to be active and assign it to someone. So I'll just drag and drop it to active state. So as soon as I change the status from here to from new to active, and the same status will get changed here once I refresh this. So here you can see the status is currently active now. So that's how you integrate a Kanban dashboard to your teams, which will help you collaborate along with the team and along with Azure DevOps. So, and in the third part of this demo moving forward, we'll be integrating this Microsoft Teams with Azure pipelines. So I'll just go into the path. So pipelines, as you know that it is a set of activities that that we can create in Azure DevOps in a sequential manner. So every stage of this pipeline have something to do with the deployment maybe, or some kind of continuous integration or continuous deployment. So then for that we can always integrate with teams, and in the teams we can get the status of our Azure pipelines using Azure Pipelines bot. So I'll just quickly show you how to get this done. So I have a release pipeline already created here. So it is a release pipeline. So basically what it does is it basically has a code ARM template. It will deploy a resource group to our Azure subscription. So right now it is configured without the parameters. So let's get started. So I'll just go into the teams, and I'll just go into apps, and in apps I'll search for Azure pipeline. So I'll click on Azure pipelines. I'll click on add to in the on the drop down arrow, and I'll just click in add to a team. So it will ask me to add it to a team's name. So I'll just quickly type in the name that the teams we have just created, DevOps AZ-400, and I'll just click on set up a bot. So as you can see, the bot has been set up, and it is already giving me some options. What can I do? So it has some already pre-built keywords that it takes, and it replies accordingly that. So first thing that we'll try to do with this Azure pipeline bot is to subscribe to some of the release pipeline that we want to receive notifications of. So I'll just try to. So first we need to sign in into this bot. I think I'm already signed in, so it will just say that, oh, you're already signed in. Yeah, so it is saying that you are already signed in into Azure Pipelines as my username. So next, I'll just try to subscribe to one of my release pipeline. I'll just type @ and then I'll just select it from the drop down Azure Pipelines. So then I'll click on subscribe, and after subscribe, I'll just put in the URL of one of my pipeline. So this is the URL. I'll copy it from the browser. So this URL can be from any page of your release pipeline. It should contain this definition ID or build ID. If you want it for a build pipeline, we are just creating it for a release pipeline, so it should have a definition ID. as soon as the URL contains the definition ID, you can subscribe it. So I'll just copy it. Now I'll go back to Teams. I'll just paste this URL and I'll just press send. So there you can see your bot has told me that this subscription has been added. So by default in the release pipe, when you subscribe to the release pipeline, it will give you options for receive to receive a notification of 3 tasks. One is deployment started, deployment completed, and deployment approval. So I'll just go and check. You can check this from subscriptions as well. You can check what all pipelines has been subscribed to your Teams account. So you'll just type Azure. I'll just type @Azure pipelines. Then I'll just type subscriptions. You can always select. As soon as it will come back to me with all the subscription that I am currently subscribed to. So you can see this channel has 3 subscription. So the resource group deploy, you can see this is the name of the release pipeline, and you can it has 3 types of notification. So I'll just go and just run this pipeline so that we can start receive information. So I just create release. Click on create. Here you can see release has been created and it is currently running. So as soon as this release has been created, we can always see Teams give me some kind of notification that this deployment of release 5 on stage 1 has started. So like this, we can receive different information on different deployment stages, release stages on our Azure Teams. So it is just, as you can see, yeah, the pipeline has been failed, so we should receive information for this as well. So just wait. So we can see that deploy of release on stage has been failed. So on every stage we can have these kind of notification configured. And going further in this demo, we can excuse me a minute. We can go back to Azure DevOps and we can have this kind of post here as well. So what we can do that Teams our all the team members can post the every kind of their daily stuff here, as well as along with that we can have this kind of notification as well. So which makes it easier to collaborate, team collaboration easier, so that if I am the project manager and this I have been receiving these kind of notifications here, so it will make me really easier for me to go and just reply on it, what's the status on this. And the responsible team members can reply on here, so we can just make the collaboration easier. So and then in the and then also if some kind of notification does not exist here, but I want to have that status update on some kind of things like that between Azure DevOps. So I'll just type here, I'll just type Azure DevOps, and it will give me an option to search work items. So like I want a notification on some on status update on one of my work item that I have created earlier. So I'll just let me recall its name. So here you can see it says I want to see my yearly sales data. So I'll just create type start user story. Click on setup. Just click on organization and I'll select my project. In type here you can see I have 2 options. This one was I have created earlier, and this one is the newest one. I'll just click on here So I can just post this here, and along with that, what's the status on this? So everyone, can know the latest status on these activities and stuff. Also, what you can do is you have a that wiki information in your Azure DevOps project. So this wiki is basically all about the project information and what all are the stages in this project that we are targeting. So it is all about the all the information in this wiki page is all about the project. So what we can do is we can just integrate this wiki page with Microsoft Teams, so that anyone who any new team member that joins the team should know it from Microsoft Teams. It will be easier for him to know about the project from that app that he will be using regularly. So what we'll do, we'll just go on to the wiki page and we'll copy this URL. Next, what we have to do is we'll just click on this tab and I'll just wait for the options to come up. So here there are multiple options. We will add our wiki page as a website in Microsoft Teams. I'll just click on website and I'll just give it a name. Is AZ-400 training, and I'll just paste the URL that I've copied here, and I'll just click on save. So as soon as I click on save, you can see that wiki page has been integrated here. And from here, anyone, any team member that I have added in this channel should be able to view this wiki. And according to his, user access, he will be able to use your DevOps portal from here as well. So he can have all the information about this project from here only. So that's it about this demo. So Ashish, over to you now.
Okay, thank you so much, Nitanshu, to covering all these things. So what we have tried to demonstrate is that we have discussed, a lot of practices over there, and all these practices revolve around the collaboration part of it, that how effectively you can collaborate among teams. That can define a lot how much you can be effective in the communication between your team members. And one of the nice tool from Microsoft is Microsoft Team, which can help you a lot when you integrate with the Azure DevOps to kind of collaborate. We tried to show some part of it, but definitely you can extend it to the level you need it. And we will be sharing the few of the labs links with the session recording that will be hosted on YouTube. And we are just going to open up for Q&A, that is quiz. We'll be just posting the URL for you in the the chat. Please go there and participate in the quiz. There are 10 questions. You need to answer those questions. Based on your answers, uh, we'll be selecting top six or six people from that list based on a lottery or a random number, and we will be announcing six winners in the next session that will be happening on 15th of November. Those six people will be getting free Azure voucher. They can use that voucher to give any exam in Azure for Azure. Definitely you can give AZ-400 or any other exam. uh, and to be eligible for this thing, make sure you are you are registered on Eventbrite link, because we will be matching your email address, being you will be inputting that on the quiz page as well as in the Eventbrite registration. Make sure you are registered on Eventbrite. We will be posting the URL for Eventbrite as well. And best of luck. Let me just post the URL over here. So we just posted, and I'm going to share the QR code as well. Just let me share my screen. So, yep. So you have this QR code. you can scan the QR code or you can go to this URL. You should be hitting MS form. You just go ahead and answer those questions over there. Uh, there are 10 questions along with your information that we will need to communicate to you if you are a winner. Your name and your email address. The email address that you put here should be the same that you have used to register the session on the Eventbrite. If you have not yet registered, we have given the link for registration as well. You can go ahead and register for the session, and then by the time we will be matching it up, you will be available there on this list as well. So, and we have already mentioned the rule. We will just select top 6 people that will be having the major points, and as well as matching up with the event information. The name of the people will be completely random. If you have any problem accessing in the URL, you can post it there in the chat. Okay. So this link will be active for next 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, this link will be, not available for you. So please make sure you answer all these questions within 10 minutes time. You won't be able to answer these questions later. So let me just, 5 minutes are already there. Let me launch the timer. So 5 minutes remaining for your answer.
So this link will be active for 5 more minutes. So quiz time is up. The quiz link will be deactivated in next few seconds. Ashish, it's over to you now.